Welcome to Drum and Drummer, a podcast focused on drums, drumming and drummers. I'm George Pickering and that's Ben Winty, and we are both professional drummers in this business we call music. So stick around and join us as we pass the time whilst trying to stay in time.
Swimming's going well. I'll give you a quick synopsis.
Swimopsis.
Swimopsis.
Fuck
there we
it
go.
out.
Now we're started.
Oh, come on.
Hello and welcome to Drum and Drummer.
Hello.
How are you, Ben?
Yeah, man.
Are you ready for today?
Oh, man. This was a big one for me.
Massive one for you.
Yeah. Today we have on the show Guy Davis from one of my favourite bands of all time, Reuben. I mean,
can you even explain what that band means to you?
I just, whenever I'm asked top 5 or top 3 albums or bands, they're in it. They're in there. And their first album, Racecar Is Racecar Backwards, is just in that top 3 albums for me.
Yeah.
I remember hearing it when it came out. Paulie B played it to me, and I was instantly like, fucking hell, what is this?
Yeah.
This is amazing. And the drumming, I was just like, holy shit, this is just everything I want from drums. The playing, the sound. And I've just been a huge fan ever since. Still am, still listen to their stuff regularly.
Yeah.
And I reached out. I met Guy about 8 years ago. He was at an Auction Thief gig, and I very sort of sheepishly went and asked him, had a little chat and got a photo with him. And I reached out to him and just thought, hey man, would you like to come on the podcast? And he said yes. So instantly I was shitting myself.
Yeah. I do remember you being very excited about it.
So it's an absolute honour to have him on. And we had a really nice chat, and I don't think I embarrassed myself too much.
Nah, you're great.
Thanks, man. So we'll just go straight in. So yeah, it's Guy Davis from Reuben. Enjoy.
Hey.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good. Sorry for the delay there, guys. My partner Caitlin's just got COVID, and so she's like lying on the sofa like dead, and so I've been sort of looking after her. And then we were watching the British Grand Prix.
You big into motorsports?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, from a young age, that and music are sort of probably my biggest passions. Yeah.
Yeah. So music-wise, are you up to anything at the present day? Are you doing anything musically?
Well, yeah, I am, but it's sort of unexpected. I haven't really planned on being very active musically. I've pretty much put myself into my career, which is completely outside of music. And sort of since sort of COVID, I've had 2 or 3 opportunities come up, just like one-offs that have been really good fun. So like obviously back in 2000s, obviously I played in Reuben, and then sort of late 2000s and for about 10 years I played in a band called Freeze the Atlantic, and then we Freeze the Atlantic came to an end at about 2018, and then after that I just really didn't have any interest in playing music at all. I've had so much sort of exposure and sort of got it out my system that I was sort of quite happy to do other things, and then sort of COVID came along, and then that sort of first break I can't remember when it was, like sort of July, August time 2020, where you could start seeing other people and stuff. I remember Jamie Lenman from Reuben, he gave me a call and said, hey, because we only lived like 10 minutes away from each other, yet we rarely see each other. Okay. And he's like, hey, where are you living? And I said, like, I'm only 10 minutes away. He's like, do you want to sort of come down to the practice room and help me hear out some drum parts I'm writing for my new, just for like a new album? And like, yeah, absolutely, that'd be really good fun. So I spent 3 hours with him in 2020, and we just did some stuff. And then the same thing happened, I think, last year. Again, I did another session. He was writing an album, which I believe he's written. In fact, he just performed it, or a lot of it, at Download Festival. I think, I don't know if you heard, he played, I think, all new material, which was off this unreleased album. Right. And I think 3 of those songs I helped him sort of hear out some of his drum parts, and I helped him develop a couple of bits on there as well. I mean, a couple of fills and stuff that I came up with. He's like, oh, I like that. I'll nab that. Use that. So I'm like, cool. It's just, for me, it's just fun just to play. And then again, about 2 weeks, maybe that was this year, I'm sort of losing track of time. And then about 2 or 3 weeks after that, a friend of mine, Andy Walker, contacted me and asked me if I could do a similar thing, help him hear out some drum parts, or even write some drum parts for him, for his band. So he's got a band, it's a solo project really, called Attendant, and he's got a bunch of stuff out on Spotify, but he's putting his first album together. And now we have a mutual friend called Chris Rouse, who was his drummer, or is his drummer really. And Chris is so busy working in the film industry, he finds it very difficult to commit to anything at the moment, just because film is like all over the place, right? So if you get a job, you take it. And he's been on some pretty cool things. So Andy just asked if I could help out whilst Chris was busy, and had a really good time actually. I guess it's been about 3 months since I've been working with Andy, and we've had a few sessions writing. I think we've done 4 or 5 songs. And the idea was we'd record them on like iPhone or just through a couple of mics onto his laptop, and then hand them over to Chris to learn, so Chris could go and record. And again, Chris has been like, actually, this job's come up and I can't commit to the recording. So to be honest, Andy then said, how about I just go and record him? And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. I'm recorded, really. I haven't really played drums seriously since Freeze Atlantic days, really. So it's been quite a while. So I thought, okay, yeah, I might be a little rusty, but yeah, I'll put it together and see how it goes. So we're heading. The idea is we're heading down to a studio, Brighton Electric, next weekend, but to record, which will be super. I've never been there, and I've heard a lot about it, and be really nice to get behind the kit in the studio again and do that. But unfortunately, because my partner Caitlin's just got COVID, and I'm starting to feel the symptoms today. Although I just tested a few hours ago, and I'm still negative. So, but I'm sort of rapidly getting a dry cough. Could of course just be the wine I'm drinking, but who knows?
yeah.
So I've taken a cold and flu tablet. Hopefully that will sort of suppress it. I'm sort of living in hope that I don't get it, and then I can sort of stick to the rehearsal. We've got one more rehearsal this week to nail another song, and then into the studio next weekend. So touch wood. So yeah, with a bit of luck, it will happen. So
are you enjoying being back behind the kit?
Yeah, honestly, it's great fun. What I don't miss is being in a band. I don't miss that part and the sort of longer term commitments that come with it, and touring and all of that sort of stuff. I don't miss that because I've done so much of it and I loved it. But honestly, I'm loving these one-offs. Just sort of head down the studio 10 minutes away, get the drums out, play, get it out of my system, and then continue with normal life again. Because yeah, as I say, for me, I spent a lot of my life doing that. It's quite refreshing to do other things. So yeah. I
mean, obviously, I gotta talk about Reuben. Like,
yeah, sure.
I'm a huge fan, and I remember the day a friend of mine played Racecar to me, and I remember just thinking, okay, what's this? Because this sounds amazing. And by that point, I was already a drummer, but I was like, wow, the drumming on it, the production, just that whole album. And like, not to sound too, I don't know what the word is, but that album kind of changed my life a bit. And especially as a drummer going forward. And, I ended up being in a band called Oxygen Thief, which was a 3-piece band.
Yeah.
We got put some stuff out on Xtra Mile.
Yeah, I remember.
We got compared to you guys quite a lot, much to our singers' disdain for that for whatever reason. But I was like, I'm living my Reuben dream here. I'm sort of going in the footsteps and Guy. But yeah, I mean, I've introduced George to Reuben, you know, in prep for this. George is a bit younger than me, so
a bit younger.
Missed the Reuben wave when it was in full flow. But
and I think I also said, Ben, just take this interview and ask anything you want, because I'm sort of quite a bit new to Reuben. However, I listened to first 2 albums on a drive yesterday, and it was amazing. It was I hadn't heard a band like that before. It was so, that first album was, I was trying to explain it to Ben before we started this. It was sort of choppy and spiky, but still in your face. That's the only way I could really describe it. You know, the drumming and the riffs and everything. Yeah. Whereas that sort of genre of music, perhaps it's a bit more driving, but it was, I almost want to say all over the place, but in a brilliant...
Yeah, it probably was, because I remember we recorded that album in the summer of 2003. So like 19 years ago now, which is crazy. So I remember that very, very well. Obviously, it's the first album any of us have ever recorded. So, and you don't know if it's going to be the last one. So you sort of put everything into it. You've got all of your songs that you've written, you know, Jamie had written throughout his sort of teens. And in fact, that's not strictly true, because by that time we were probably pretty sick of playing them, and so a lot of them were newer songs at the time. But we could have theoretically released another album of songs before that, because we had that much material. But yeah, in terms of it being all over the place, I mean, it's a long album as well. I think there's something like 16 songs on it. Again, because we're like, shit, are we ever going to release an album again? This could be the one opportunity. We've got so much material that, like, we just want to put as much on it as possible. And because of that, there's so many different influences. I remember we were really into At the Drive-In at the time, and they were quite a spiky band, and songs like Full of the Bastille and stuff were, and possibly Wooden Boy and stuff like that. Wooden Boy wasn't on the album, but it was a B-side. Those sorts of songs were, I would say, influenced by At the Drive-In for sure, and other stuff. So and then you got your more sort of poppy stuff. You got your Freddy Kruegers and Moving to Blackwaters and Parties Break Hearts and stuff. So more sort of straight up Meat and Two Veg sort of rock songs, you know, or rock pop stuff. So and then you got No One Wins the War, which is the opener on the album, and I don't really know what that is, to be honest, genre-wise. I mean, obviously it's rock stuff, but it's got like piano in the middle and sort of a bit swingy ballady, and then it's like, I don't know, it's an interesting album, and it's probably still one obviously I'm really proud of it. It's the first one, it's one that's probably got the most sort of nostalgia attached to it, just because I remember that hot summer recording it, you know.
How old were you when you recorded that album?
I would have been 20.
20. Wow.
Yeah, because I was born in 83, so yeah, 2003. Yeah.
Is it true that was the drums were recorded in a farm or like a shed or something? It was basically a tiny little brick building, like an ex-garage or something, that we recorded with a guy who used to play drums with Jamie and John. Jason.
Jason, and back when they were called Angel, before Mark. So there was Jason, then there was Mark, and then there was me. And so Jason had built this studio called Stakeout Studios, which was this tiny little brick building with like a little, I don't know what it was actually. I think it was like an old car, maybe mechanics, I don't know, workshop or something, but he converted it into this tiny little studio. Obviously, Stakeout, I think, still exists to this day, but it's in a completely different location, completely different thing. But back in the day, that's what it was. And he didn't have really much in the way of kit, and so I remember we sort of bought a lot of the microphone, or helped him contribute towards microphones and sort of outboard gear that he needed to make it work. So I remember first time we went in there and recorded a bunch of demos, and then when we did the album, in fact, I think we did our first single, Stuck in My Throat, from there, and then re-recorded that and the rest of the album a couple of months later, when we got more, better gear. He sort of cut his I don't know. Really, I mean, I think a lot of people that record with Jason and Stakeout now sort of refer back to that album, is what I've heard. So
I'm one of those people. Jason did some mastering for me a few years ago, and I remember saying to him, like, I just love Racecar, and I think he even replied and said something like, yeah, it doesn't sound bad for being recorded in a shed or something like that,
Yeah, and effectively it was a glorified shed, but but a good one. I mean, no, it was a decent studio. It was just two halves. It was a control room and a live room, and then a little like pokey vocal booth, like the size of a little toilet off the side of the live room. So, but that was it. It was a tiny little building. Yeah.
So I didn't know this, at the time when I got into Reuben and listen, I didn't know you weren't the original drummer, and I didn't really know anything about Angel or all that sort of stuff. So I think John and Jamie went to school together, so they'd been playing for a while. But how did you get to know them guys, and how did you get into the band?
Yeah, just by chance. I was practicing at the same rehearsal studios as they were, or they had at some point, in Guildford, a place called Backline Studios, which is under the railway arches. And I used to play there, sort of late 90s, rehearsing with my band Descent, which is my sort of school college band. And we were sort of doing rocky stuff, and Brian, the owner of Backline, he sort of pulled me aside one time after we rehearsed and said, "Hey, I don't suppose you'd be interested in trying out for this band, Angel? They're looking for a drummer. They're auditioning drummers at the moment." I said, "Cool," and I hadn't heard of him before, and I don't remember the details, but I remember getting a link. I think maybe I gave him a number or something. This is probably pre-mobile, so I probably gave my house number to him. He gave it to, and he probably had it onto Jamie. And then I think at some point Jamie called me and we had a discussion, and I got a link to, they had a sort of a download link on peoplesound.com. I don't know if you remember PeopleSound. I don't know if it even exists anymore, but it was sort of in the early days of sort of MP3s, and you could download stuff from there. And you could even order a CD version, which I did actually, because I heard these 4 songs and I thought, these are wicked, really, really cool. And unlike anything else, really, I couldn't really place it. It sounded a bit like his voice reminded me a bit of like Silverchair, maybe like a bit of Bush, Silverchair sort of thing going on. But the music was a bit more edgy than that. It was a bit more punky, upbeat. But I don't know, it was weird. I'd never heard any band like it. And I really liked it. There was a ton of energy in the music. And so I sort of really bounced off that. So yeah, that led us to meeting up for some sort of audition. And we just played along the songs, and they at some point I guess said, "Hey, yeah, we would like you to play drums for us," whilst Mark, who was the drummer at the time, went away to do a ski season. So originally I had auditioned to play with them just for a few months to fill in. And then I think in that time we did a bunch of stuff. We just shows, and I think we may have recorded our first single together, Scared of the Police. And then I think Mark came back briefly, and they did some more recordings with Paul Tipler, who we recorded Scared of the Police with, and those recordings I think became B-sides on the next single, by which time I'd become the full-time drummer, because Mark decided he was going to go to university and wasn't going to continue as the drummer. So there's a lot of switching around, I guess, or a couple of switch arounds that happened. But really, that's sort of what happened. I think when Mark originally left to do the ski season, they played one last gig with him as Reuben, but up until that point, they were known as Angel, and then I sort of continued as the drummer of Reuben, and then Mark came back briefly, and then so on. So yeah. It's all a very long time ago, so I'm sort of stretching my memory here, but
when you were recording Racecar, like, did you know you were recording something that was going to be so... obviously, you know, it's so good, but did you know it was going to be something that was really going to propel you guys and kind of be so... Because I'd say Reuben, I don't know, I don't want to say a cult band, but like, you weren't in the eyes of people for very long. You it's going to sound so cheesy, but you shone so brightly in that time, and I think there was a massive wave of sort of alternative bands in that early mid noughties, and Racecar is such a seminal album, I think, from that period. Did you have any sort of awareness when you were recording it that like this is gonna go somewhere for you guys as a band?
Not at all, to be honest. You're so in it, and it's just your thing. It's certainly excited about people hearing it, because even just hearing back put a drum track down and then you listen back to it, you're like, shit, this sounds really good. Like, Jason just got really good sound very quickly, and then like, you know, John would put the bass down and Jamie would do the guitar and then put a vocal down. You're like, fuck, this is sounding great. Like, I was super excited about it. I mean, honestly, it was so fun to record that album. I was just so excited the whole time, and I was really bouncing off it as well. I think I probably ended up playing better because every time I heard something back, I was like, shit, this sounds great, and just gave me a bit of a buzz, and I'd just chuck in a few more like little, you know, fills here and there that were a bit of fun, and just a bit more feel and stuff. And I remember it, the feeling like it was yesterday. I mean, I really do have a sort of a strong sort of sentimental and sort of nostalgia to that time. I really do. But no, I didn't have any. I don't think we had any idea sort of the impact it would have. I mean, I think I agree with you. I think the band is probably more of a cult band than, you know, we weren't a mainstream band by any means, but we definitely have a very strong fan base. That's for sure, and possibly even more so since we sort of disbanded. But I think you know, it's still a fairly small fan base. It's just a cult one, I would say. Yeah, because everyone that likes Reuben is really into them. Yeah. That's what I found anyway. So So it's difficult to say. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just three dudes that sort of happened to live in a similar area, ended up playing music together, making an album that seems to rock, and then the rest sort of is down to what people interpret, really. I mean, you can't sort of second guess that stuff. You know, to us, we were just writing music that we loved playing. That's all. It just starts from that really honest place, really, and the rest is just circumstantial, I guess. So, yeah. Although I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, obviously, it's awesome in hindsight to hear what people think of it, right? But at the time, you can't really think about that. So sort of, just is what it is, right? All I can say is that I super loved playing drums back then, and just really buzzed off it. So like, just being in that studio with my new kit as well, because that was exciting, having a new kit.
So was that kit you bought yourself?
So I was so fortunate in that I ended up getting a deal with Sonor, mainly through my friend Ryan Jenkinson, who played in a band called This Girl, and he now, to this day, actually still plays Sonor drums, and he plays in Reverend and the Makers.
Oh wow!
But he really put in a good word for me at Sonor, and I ended up getting a loaner kit. And picking it up from their distributor in London and using that to record the album with. And then they're like, cool, we need it back after 3 months. And I was like, oh shit, like, I really want to just continue playing these drums. So I ended up taking it back but then they just swapped it out for like another one, pretty much the same. And the kit they gave me the first time round, I believe, was had just been returned by Steve Smith. Which is just like amazing anyway. You're like, what a legend. So like I was playing like his kit that he'd just played on I don't know if it was a clinic tour or something that he was doing, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it was Steve Smith was playing this kit. So I was like, that's awesome. So and honestly, that just having that Sonor kit was enough just to make me sort of get really great vibes and just become a little bit better somehow. It's just the way the kit spoke, like the sounds, the tones coming from it. I just didn't have a kit that good before. I had a little Laser branded kit that I got for my 8th birthday, I think, when I was living in Singapore. And that's where I learned to play drums. And I'd played that kit all the way through. And by this time, I'd been in sort of little bands at school and college and stuff. So it just acquired stickers. I had, all these sort of NoFX and Pearl Jam stickers and stuff all over it. So it was this little blue kit. And it's just covered in stickers. It's a bit of a punk rock kit. And it was good fun. It got me through a lot of stuff. But by the time we got around to recording the album, I wanted a really great sounding kit. So by that time, I'd sort of struck a deal with Sonor and also Zildjian cymbals, which both of those things made a huge difference because I ended up having some pretty nice sounding kit for recording the album. Although I must say, Racecar, I used 2 different drum kits. I used a Tama Star Classic for probably half the songs, which was Jason's kit, his sort of studio kit, and that sounded incredible. And I always wanted a kit like a Star Classic because the way they resonate is just so open and just full of tone. I'm like, it sounds amazing. So I got the Sonor kit, but actually the Sonor kit, it sounds amazing, but it's very different. It's a bit more, it's more tight in the way it sounds. It's a bit more focused. It's great. They're both amazing sounding kits, but they're very different as well.
So was there a conscious decision to use 2 different kits, or was it just timing getting the Sonor one? Or both really. I guess it was just a bit of a luxury. I mean, I guess I wanted to use the Sonor, and so that sort of influenced things a little bit. I mean, I set it up. We did some rehearsals in the studio a couple of times. I remember just playing through the songs, and I had this new kit, and I guess I can't remember the details really. I mean, it must have just been a bit of influence because I'd struck the deal. I got the drums, and I thought, well, I've got to use them on the album, and I set them up, and they did sound amazing. So we got some really great sounds out of them and recorded them. I mean, they're recorded pretty open. I don't think I remember dampening them much, if at all. They were pretty open sounding. I did love that sound. And then the Star Classic, we just decided would be good on a few songs as well from memory. I don't remember conscious decision saying it needs to be this kit on this song and that kit on the other. I don't recall. It's too long ago. But but I do remember, I guess, 50-50 split between the songs on the album, which ones were Star Classic and which ones were the Sonor design. I'm gonna see if I can.
See if you can. I don't know. There's I couldn't tell you either. I wouldn't be able to tell.
Right, okay,
although off the top of my head, but I have a feeling there's some telltale signs, like on Full of the Bastille. There's some more exposed drum parts on there where it all sort of breaks down. It's just sort of toms and stuff, and there's like a drum fill in there, like this crazy drum fill. And that I'm sort of 90% certain that's got to be the Sonor. It's got that sort of sound to it. And then I reckon Freddy Krueger's probably, by the sound of that floor tom, is probably a bit more of the Star Classic. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, a little test.
Yeah. Have a listen.
Yeah. When did Xtra Mile get involved? Because they released Racecar, didn't they? Was that?
They did. So at this time, and so I was thinking about it when you asked the question earlier, did you know this is going to have sort of impact and stuff? We were having a really difficult time, I guess, trying to lock down a record label to release the thing. And it must have been before we started recording, because I think what happened in the end was We went in to record before we did the album, as I said, I think 3 or 4 months before, roughly, we went in to record some demos to sort of tout around and try and get some more interest. And I think we also did the Stuck in My Throat single, as I said. And we released that Stuck in My Throat single through a different label, which the name escapes me right now. But that was sort of a short-term measure to get something out, just to keep generating press and interest in the band. And we had a ton of meetings with different labels, and some pretty major labels as well. And I remember sort of other bands at the time, like Funeral for a Friend and
Bullet for Valentine. Is
yes,
that
yeah,
there we
for
go.
Valentine. I think those two bands had recently got signed, and we were sort of talking to sort of similar people, and I don't remember the details, but I do remember sort of conversations about, well, I think they sort of decided to sign them instead of you guys, and so on. So yeah, it felt like we sort of got close a couple of times, but it never really struck gold. So we felt pretty disheartened, because we really felt like we had some really good songs, and that they deserved a label backing, and could go really quite far potentially. We honestly felt there was a lot of potential in the band and the songs. To this day, I still think the songs are brilliant. Maybe our selection of songs to make a classic album versus an album of 16 songs, which is hectic all over the place, and maybe we could have made a more concise album. But I think we definitely had the repertoire to deliver something really fantastic. Yeah, so we decided somewhere along the line, how long do you wait until you get a record deal and you record an album? We just thought we'd better just get on and do it. So that's when we came up with the idea, we'll just try and raise the funds ourselves, borrow money, and pay friends and family back later, and put in our own money and savings and stuff to record the album. So that's when we sort of spoke to Jason, and Jason, well, I can't remember which way around it came. I think Jason came with us with like an 18-page document about how he would record the album, and he was sort of super keen on like doing something. We're like, well, we want to record an album, and this looks like the first time anyone's put in a lot of effort into expressing their interest in wanting to do something. So, it helped him, it helped us, nothing to lose. So let's work with Jason and record this thing. And I think in the end we must have recorded it for about $7 or $8 grand. As I say, we borrowed and steal microphones and money from friends and stuff to make it happen, and without a label. But we did have a press company called Press Council who were very supportive and stuff. And then we thought, okay, once we've got the album, we'll take that to record companies and then say, look, you don't even have to second guess what the album is going to sound like. This is it. It's done. All you need to do is say, decide whether you like it or not, enough to sign us and release it. And still, it was troublesome trying to get anything. So we ended up meeting with our press company, Press Council. They came down to Aldershot. I think we went to McDonald's or somewhere, and we were talking about how would we sort of progress things, because they were very keen on momentum and keeping releases coming out and shows and stuff. So they had things to write about, but the problem was, how do we get this album released? And they came up, I guess, with the idea of creating a record label to put it out. I said, well, essentially, I think we'll put the record label together and we'll call it Xtra Mile. Yeah, something along those lines. It's a long time ago. So I believe that's where the conception of Xtra Mile came about. And then I can't remember if our album was the first or second album to be released on it, or release single or album, I'm not sure. But I think Million Dead may have been first or second. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure the conception came around that sort of meeting down in McDonald's in Aldershot that time ago.
Are you glad in hindsight that you did sort of do the first album, I mean, mainly on your own? And you talked about looking for a label to perhaps make a sort of more concise first album, but instead said, okay, let's do it ourselves. And would it have been different, and would it have been, you know, a different album basically? Do you reckon?
Yeah. I guess it could have been really different. I remember even very close to recording it, we were still sort of trying to decide what the best combination of tracks would be, and whether really it should have been as long as it was. But I think it was a bit more desperation that this could be the only chance to make an album. It just seemed so difficult at that time for anyone to be successful in music, that we just thought, shit, let's just put the thing out that we really like, and got no label sort of pressurizing us here. So I think it could have been really difficult. Really different from what it is. For better or worse, I don't know. I don't really think about it. It doesn't really bother me. I think, I'm proud of what we did.
Going on to sort of like playing live with Reuben, you know, you guys toured pretty relentlessly. I saw you play Camden Electric Ballroom in 2004 with 100 Reasons.
Oh yeah.
I even bought the red T-shirt with the cassette tape on the front. It's too small for me these days, but like how you got to be touring a lot, especially those days. To sort of, how often were you? How many shows a year were you guys sort of doing at peak? You know,
that's a good question. I guess we probably, we toured a lot earlier on. I've probably forgotten how much, but occasionally I'll stumble across an old sort of Access All Areas pass. You know, I've got a bag of old memorabilia. And it'd be like a 30-day long tour with like 2 days off in January or something. So it's like winter and everyone's got colds and stuff. And then, there'll be another one in March, April, and then another one in June. And then, so I guess probably that's sort of how we worked. We'd do like some pretty extensive touring, playing all the dives across the UK, probably 3 or 4 times a year, and then sort of shows and festivals in between and stuff. So I think we played quite a lot. Probably nowhere near as much as Frank Turner, for example, plays. I mean, he's just played an incredible number of shows and continues per year. But back then, I think, we played quite a lot. And for a band also that didn't really tour internationally, we only really played mostly in the UK, and then a couple of times we went to Europe. Everything else was just not financially viable. We wanted to go to the States, we wanted to go to Japan, but it's like, how do you make that work financially and work in a release with a label? And just the logistics never worked out for us to do it. But in the UK, certainly we played a lot. So, yeah.
I was just going to say, any favorite gigs with Reuben?
We played, after our last album, we did a tour and we played at the London Astoria 2, which before was called the Mean Fiddler, and before that was called the London Astoria 2 again. So I think by the last time I think we played it was back to being called the London Astoria 2. And that was, I remember finishing that gig and thinking, fuck, we played so well. Like, we were so on it. And we'd recorded a DVD there maybe a couple of years before where we weren't so good, but it was the one we recorded, and, TV, not TV cameras, but also we had camera crew around, and it was being recorded for the DVD, and the sound mix on it wasn't very good. But I look back at that and think, oh God, it wasn't, we didn't execute it very well. It was still fun, but I know we were just a few levels higher at this gig. And I always remember thinking, I wish we recorded that, because that was like the pinnacle for me. Like, we were just so on it. I was probably playing a few more tracks to click as well, because we had a bit more computery stuff happening as well. So that probably held things together a bit more.
When was this? Was this?
I can't remember. I'm guessing it's probably around 2007, 2008.
Right.
I mean, we broke up in 2008, so possibly 2007, maybe autumn time, but it wasn't recorded. I think there's a couple of bits of camera footage floating around. I've got a couple of bits because my parents came to it and watched from the mixing desk on the second floor looking down. They got a couple of bits, but it's like the time when digital cameras were a bit like 30 frames per second and a bit staggery, and the sound wasn't great. But that's the only memory I've got from it, but that I can watch back. But I do remember thinking, shit, we were really good that night. I think towards the end, I think we became a really tight unit and played very, very well. When I look back at some footage, I think, oh shit, we played that a million miles an hour, or the guitars were out of tune, or Jamie's voice was a little off, or whatever. But there were certainly off times as well. But plenty of good ones. So it's one of those things. We were just around when there wasn't much captured on film, because YouTube was still pretty low quality at the time. You didn't really get much HD stuff on there, and also just phone cameras were shit, and people just didn't. There just wasn't much documented of good quality, and there's some pretty like distorted recordings on YouTube that I've seen. But like there's just not much captured, which is sad in a way. But so a lot of it for me, the good stuff is just purely in my memory, which is that's cool too.
Yeah.
I watched your I did see your download set. I watched it the other day from, I think it was 2007 on the main stage. And it was you guys were, I felt, you played really well. Like, did you feel like you belonged at that level, like main stage download? Did that feel like
whenever we played like really big venues, I remember in Europe, we played some really big ones with Billy Talent. I feel like, maybe not every time, but certain times I felt like we were really on it and like deserved to be there, and did a really good job of it. But there's such a good buzz from it. I remember playing London Astoria for the first time in 2002 and just thinking, yeah, this is where we should be. Like, this feels so right. So there's certainly times where we played bigger gigs and I felt just so like, this is where I want to be. Download was a funny one because that was a very big event, and having been there sort of myself as just a punter or whatever, we'd been there a few years before anyway, because we played the smaller stages, but to play the main stage was quite something else. And I remember getting confirmation we were on the bill and playing the main stage 6 months or so before, and finding it very difficult to sleep for about 6 months, because I just wake up in a cold sweat, sort of imagining what songs we're playing, and then getting a bit of stage fright in my head, thinking, shit, what if we fuck up? What if I fuck up in front of all of those people? And thinking, shit, do we deserve to be, or do I deserve to be there? Sort of second guessing myself. So sort of confidence was, lacking at times. But I remember getting there and being, I don't think any of us really slept the night before. We stayed in a travel lodge and got up at 6 because we had to be on site really early to load in. It was like you have to be on site at like 7 a.m. or something, and we weren't on until I think 11:45. So we were just so tired and just nervous and all of these feelings. I just remember my hands sort of just being really sweaty, just thinking about it. And then unloaded the drums, and my friend Reuben was teching for me, and he helped me get set up. And then you do like a little sound check behind the curtain. They get all the mics ready, and you're on the riser, and you go through. And then I started to feel quite excited, and then it all got rolled on, and our big banner got sort of hoisted up, and the set began. And I think we were all pretty nervous. And then you're like 30 seconds into the first song, and then you're like, fuck yeah, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
And then you start to feel like you can own it.
Yeah.
Once you break through that barrier. And that was super fun. I do remember enjoying that gig a lot. I remember the last song, just before it started, my seat was rocking around and it had come loose. And I thought, fuck, this is where it all falls apart. And I was like, calling Robin over going, fuck man, the fucking seat's falling apart. And I think it was a rock and sock thrown, and yeah, damn it, the thing was just falling apart. So he managed to sort of screw it back and get it into position. But I remember Jamie sort of being nervously awaiting me, going, fuck, what's up, guy? We need to start the fucking song. We're going to start looking like clowns. So that was a bit nerve-wracking, but I mean, I look back at that footage and think, it was good, but it was also a bit scrappy as well. Like, it was a bit frantic. And I was like, it wasn't our best. That's the thing that gets me, is like, I know there were times we were just super on it. We weren't rushing. Jamie's voice was on point. The harmonies were on point. Everything's just solid. And then there's other times where we're a bit more racy and sort of really, I'm speeding up and,
the good ones are never filmed.
Yeah. And I just wish sometimes, I wish that stuff was captured. But hey.
What a sort of drum gear question? Like, what snare drum did you use, or mainly? Because it's just, I watched the Mean Fiddler footage from the DVD, and like even on the albums, and there's probably different ones, but just snare just sounds incredible. Like,
mostly. I used, and when I say mostly, I mean like for, I think all 3 albums, I think I used, the snare I used most was my Sonor 14x4 designer. It's like white sparkle designer snare that came with the rest of the kit. It just always sounded great. We played different snares, and we'll come back to that one. And even actually, I've got a number of snares now, but back in 2016, when we recorded the last Freezing Atlantic album, we were sound testing a lot of different snares, and we came back to that one, and it just, that one, what's that? Which one's that? It's like, fuck, really? This one again? That sounds amazing. Don't know why, it just always sounds good. And we didn't tune it like a piccolo, because I guess it could be considered maybe a piccolo, I don't know, but I always tuned it slightly deeper, so it had a bit of a fatter sound. It just always sounded good. So that's on most albums. And then like the odd song will have something else. Like I think on Racecar, we'd also use like a 14x5 Tama something or other. I don't remember the details of that one. And then I had like a 13x3 piccolo on the middle 8 of No One Wins the War. There's sort of a breakdown bit, and that's a Pearl 13x3 piccolo. But yeah, on the Freeze Atlantic stuff, I used a bunch of different Sonor snare drums. So throughout Reuben, I didn't have much more Sonor kit. I sort of didn't really want to take the piss too much and ask for new stuff. But towards the end, I ordered a bunch. I ordered a new drum kit from them, and which was more akin to a Tama Star Classic. So it was a single ply birch, I think, versus the designer kit that I've been playing most of Reuben, which was I can't remember, I want to say 3-ply, like a thicker ply maple. Very different. That's much more rounded, focused, versus the single ply, which was more open. Sang a lot more. That's my favorite kit, actually. The black one I've got now, this the SQ2 stuff, which is completely custom in every way. That is, both kits I love. They're both very different from each other. But with that kit, I got a bunch of different snares throughout the Freeze Atlantic. One of which, actually a few, I love them all, to be honest. I've got a Danny Carey one, which is just ridiculous. Like I can't remember if it's I think it's a bronze designer one. I forget what it's called now, to be honest. But they do. Sonor just makes some incredible drums. So I've got lucky to have a few different ones from them now. So they really supported me over the years. So.
When I was watching some footage of you guys, and I was like, oh yeah, guy plays a Sonor kit.
Yeah.
I was like, but I don't know. I just don't see them that often. Kind of.
No, you don't.
Around.
Yeah.
Where are they? Where are they based?
They're based. The German company. I forget exactly where in Germany they're. I've never been to the factory, but yeah, obviously AC/DC, Sonor, Steve Smith, Sonor. There's some great players, and their kits are fantastic. Yeah,
I think just to finish up on the Reuben, when it ended in 2008, how did you feel?
Well, I was pretty upset. I remember Jamie called us all over to his house to have a talk, which I think we all knew meant something bad. And he pretty much expressed his opinion that he couldn't do it anymore. He was just mentally exhausted by it all. And I always wanted to sort of continue on and carry on, but in hindsight, it was probably a good shout, because if you look fast forward a few years and see where we all are now, I think we're all in very good places. So it's probably worked out for the best. But at the time, it was very difficult to accept, because it was all we really knew, and we had sacrificed a lot to do it as well. None of us had really developed any career paths elsewhere, and I think Jamie probably had started to in terms of like illustration work, and he'd got a job up in London at this point, and was probably the one that decided to progress in other ways before the rest of us. So I felt like he sort of had sort of a foot ahead in some ways, and actually in reality we just had some catching up to do and get on with life in other ways. So just felt a little bummed for sure. Very sad when it all came to an end, because I couldn't imagine. I remember speaking. Our manager Barney was there as well, and we left and so got in the car, and I said to Barney, I said, I just can't imagine not playing those songs anymore. And it's just such a built-in default to be playing music and to be playing those songs that I just felt like a massive gaping hole was appearing, and I was like, shit, like really sad, because I love playing those songs, and also worried and scared about what to do in the future, because I didn't really know what else I wanted to do. So that was worrying. Yeah,
you had the kind of the album after the last album, We Should Have Gone to University.
Yeah,
and even in the documentary, you mentioned all your siblings went to uni. And you didn't, because you joined Reuben and wanted to do that, I guess. Do you feel, you mentioned at the start, you're focused on your career these days, and are you kind of happy how everything's panned out, I guess?
Absolutely, 100%. And I would do it all the same again versus not doing it, right? Because, it's amazing. Making music, having the sort of legacy that Reuben have is, I don't take that for granted. I think it's absolutely amazing, right? I'd never have thought sort of 20 years. It was 22 years ago that I joined the band. Never would have thought 22 years later I'd be sort of sat here talking about it, let alone having recorded 3 albums and DVDs and done all the touring we did, and people still talk about the band. It's amazing. Like, just would never have thought of it. So it's really cool, because I'm just unlike anyone else. I'm just a fan of music, and I love drums, and I'm no different in that respect. So just to have created something that people also like is, for me, just like lovely and sort of heartwarming as well.
George, I said to George, I've always said like how I always talk about Reuben whenever who are your favourite bands. Reuben is always on the list, and definitely in the top 3, and especially Racecar. And I said to George that your drumming had really influenced me, and then having listened to Oxygen Thief, I think George can see the. I was trying to get somewhere close to what you were doing, and I remember when we played with Mongol Horde at the Wedge Drums in Pompey, and thankfully it was after we played. I think someone said, "Oh, Ben, guy from Reuben's here," and I was like, "I'm so glad that I was told that after we played." But then you very kindly, we had a quick chat, and very kindly took a picture of me. And so it was a good honour meeting you, and I know it's even better that I get to chat to you today. And one last thing as well, just one of my highlights from the documentary. It kind of blows my mind still, but you guys, the jobs you guys had, when you're in Reuben and you're at Debenhams, I believe, and John's at Waitrose, and Jamie's in a fish and chip restaurant. And one of my highlights is you say you're gonna sometimes you go and hide, you sneak back and go and hide in the gaming area. And there's an electric drum kit, and he said you go and just play that until a crowd of people would form around you, and I guess your boss would sort of be notified. And I just thought that was just brilliant. I can just imagine it's almost like a Wayne's World thing. Just
yeah.
In his Debenhams uniform, and then just nailing it on this kit, and then
I went into there and worked on Sundays when we weren't touring to earn a bit of cash, and then probably did some overtime during the week. But I was only contracted to do Sundays, so that was my trickle feed of income whilst we weren't playing or recording or whatever. And I was working in the homeware, so I was just sort of selling pots and pans, and then right next is the game section, and they had the music and keyboards and a little electric drum kit. And that does seem such a long time ago now. Sort of forget about it, but yeah. No, I remember just being a bit bored, to be honest. Just no customers, and I sort of wandered in there, just sat down. I mean, what are they going to do, right? So just had a little tinkle, and then a few people start forming, and you can play drums, can you? Yeah, I like to play. Yeah. Once you get behind the kit and you start tinkering, it's like, you sort of get carried away. So whatever. People. What I love is that people just didn't realise I was in a band either. So I like keeping the two things separate. I don't like to make a big deal with it. So it's just it's quite funny.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working with people and then they find out that you're in a band, and they start to sort of Google you, like, what the fuck? What's this?
And just to finish off, we've been asking all our guests this. We have a lot of chat on here about delivery companies. Do you have a favourite delivery company?
No, I can't say I have a favourite. I mean, UPS have always been quite reliable. Yodel. No.
Yeah.
No, they're not a favourite. I'm saying Yodel can fuck off.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I mean, they're at the bottom of the pack.
Are you putting them below Hermes?
Yeah. Hermes I've used a few times recently, and sending some stuff back, and they've been all right. They've been pretty good.
Branded Hermes, the Every.
I didn't even realise until the other day I had to return something, and I thought, where the fuck's the name of there's this Every, but what's the name of the company? And I had to Google it, and I was like, I'm a fucking idiot.
Okay, so we're going UPS at the top and Yodel at the bottom. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And Every, I like Every. Okay. I never thought I'd say that.
There you go.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm a big Reuben fan. I think George is now too. So,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'll keep hammering those albums into his skull.
Oh, God. Well, there's always too much of a good thing, so don't do too much.
Cool. Well, we'll leave you. Hopefully, you don't get sick with COVID, and hope your partner's okay. And,
I hope so. Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
To enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. So, cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks very much. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Okay, good to meet you guys.
There we go. Thanks so much to Guy for coming on.
Yeah.
If you don't know who Reuben are, go check them out, because they're just such a good band. And I kind of forget actually how long ago they were a band, really. They sort of ended 14 years ago, but yet still so prevalent in my life.
Well, it was quite funny because you were asking questions that to you almost seemed quite relevant and present.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, God, I don't know, it's so long ago now, I can't remember, and it was interesting. It was sort of like, because that must be the case with hardcore Reuben fans. They'll know the band more than the band, it was if
they've moved on, but we haven't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
we're still in that sweet early noughties phase.
Yeah.
That's when people my age, that's when we were, 17, 18, and really forming ourselves and for me as a drummer. And even you said, I think you re-listened to Auction Thief and could hear the influences.
Oh God, yeah, definitely. And I think that music never leaves you. Like the music that you listen to when you are 18 or 19.
Yeah.
The music that gets you into music is even
those real formative years from 14, 15 to 20.
Yeah.
Where you find what you're into, and that stays with you, I think, forever.
This is it.
And it's a capturing of your youth and those very formative years.
Yeah. And there will never really be music that you find that tops it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
There shouldn't be. You think about the Rolling Stones. They all say that those records, rock and roll records they listened to when they were teenagers, is still the top. And it's the same with me and Arctic Monkeys. I've never had anything that's topped Arctic, and it's important. So yeah, to have a band like that to you and to talk to the drummer was
it was great.
It was brilliant.
I think as well it's just really nice to see, after Freeze the Atlantic, and then he kind of dropped off the radar really, and it's nice to see that he's getting back into drumming a bit, and seems to be sort of enjoying and picking and choosing a few bits and bobs to do.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Well, he did mention that he doesn't want to be in a band anymore, but he still wants to play drums. I thought that was, a mature way to look at it. It's sort of, I guess after you've done that for many years of touring and sleeping and wherever and slugging around gear, there would be a point where you're like, do you know what? There's bits I enjoy, but there's bits I don't enjoy. So I'm still going to play, but, perhaps the years of, endless touring is behind him, which is fair enough.
But yeah, go check out Reuben.
Yeah.
Send us an email. Get in touch.
Yep.
What's going on? What's going on drum-wise in your life? Email us at drumanddrummer. I've fucking done it again. I can't remember for the life of you. drumanddrummerpod@gmail.com.
Yep.
Give George some love on the Instagram. Drum and Drummer Podcast.
Yep.
Twitter.
Message us, comment on something.
Comment. We're doing what
like
we can.
a story. Yep, whatever.
Yeah.
We appreciate it all.
We really do. We really do.
Yeah.
We're not sure whether we're going to be back next week with a guest or not. We've got some in the bag.
Yep.
We're lining some others up.
Already recorded. It's almost too many guests now.
We're too organised.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could just kick back for a month now, not do anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
But we're constantly working on stuff. Yeah. So there's definitely some more guests coming up in the future, but maybe we'll just slip in a one with me and you, catch up where we're at with this mental summer of gigging. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye, George.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Drum and Drummer. You can find us on Instagram at Drum and Drummer Podcast. And you can send us an email to drumanddrummerpod@gmail.com. Remember, just pick up the sticks and twat it.